are sitting here with the man, the myth, the legend, Paul Justice. How's it going?
It's going good. I don't know about the myth or the legend. Notorious is more like it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Notorious suits him.
Yeah.
That's good, dude. And we've been trying to get you on since pretty much
the beginning.
First.
Yeah,
2 to 3 episodes.
and we've been rooting for you guys behind the scenes too. Every podcast that you post, we watch it, we like it, because mainly we like it is because you guys are promoting all the local stuff, and I think that's really important, especially with, you know, the oil field economy, the boom and bust cycle, and anybody that's lived here longer than 6 months understands that. So
The Vernal cycle.
yeah. My parents grew up here. They went through it back in the 70s and 80s. I went through it as a kid. I didn't really pay attention as a kid, but now owning a business and seeing that, that's the kind of thing that keeps you up at night. But this kind of stuff, I love it because it gets the word out. It lets people know about what's going on, just the local people. And then, you know, we always have the tourist season, and that's always helpful too. So, and you know, doing what I love, working on motorcycles, riding motorcycles. I love it when I can go home and say a hard day of work's done after I've ridden motorcycles for 8 hours a day. So it doesn't get any better than that.
I was telling Chase, I'm jealous. This is my dream job.
Yeah, well, you may have missed the boat on that, Alan, because we just got done hiring 2 guys. So, I'm a big believer in that any company, your biggest asset is your employees. It's not your customers, which we do have the best customers ever, but your employees are your greatest asset. And we just hired a kid. He's originally from Nephi or Delta, and good kid. His name's Boone, and that's his Christian name is Boone, not a nickname. We have a tradition down here. We like to give people nicknames, and they tend to stick. If any of you guys know Shrek down at Jack's General Tire, I nicknamed Shrek. I gave him that name, and now it's on his shirt. So, but I don't get a nickname Boone because that's already the coolest name you could have.
Yeah, you can't mess with that one.
Yeah, you can't beat that. Yeah, and then we got Tanner Hardman. He's a junior, which is something else I kind of want to talk about. But he's a junior at the high school. He comes in after school, and he's the perfect kid because he comes in, he does what he needs. He's quiet, and he's really good at, you know, you can give him a task and he'll get it done. And he's mechanically, he's got a mechanical aptitude for doing things. I think don't tell him I said this. If you tell him I said this, I'll call him a liar. But he's probably better at it than I am, and he's way younger than I am. So I can't wait to see what that kid's like when he's got 15, 20 years of experience.
We were just talking maybe about not having competition. You apprentice him too long, you might have a problem on your hands.
No. See, that's how we like to do it. You know, I want to treat my employees so well that they never want to leave here. I want to make them, and then I want to build them up to where they're better than I ever could be, and just make it into something huge. And to be a part of something like this where we're growing this business. This is our second year, going on our second year of being in business. I like Alan, this has been my dream since I was a little kid. Growing up in the Basin, we were always about motorcycles and off-roading and different things. And I had a scout leader that handed me a dirt bike magazine one day that had Jeremy McGrath on the cover. And from that day on, I was hooked.
There it is.
Yep. And so if anybody wants to badmouth Jeremy McGrath, don't do it down here, 'cause that's my guy. That's my guy. All you Ricky Carmichael fans, get out of here. Yeah, I know they call him the GOAT, and I'm the type of person I will give credit where credit's due. Ricky Carmichael's awesome, James Stewart's awesome. They set records, but nobody has 72 Supercross wins. No one even comes close. Ricky Carmichael's second, and he's only got like 40.
And what's crazy is he still shows up sometimes.
Oh, I know. I actually watched
Reed.
Yeah.
And I think he's retired now, but.
Well, okay, so and Reed, this is his final ride tour. This is his last year, and they know he's retiring. And then this whole coronavirus thing, they shut down.
They just canceled the last two.
The next year, and they may reschedule them, but it's not likely because this stuff gets booked way in advance. But my wife Julie, when I first met her, I introduced her to Supercross. This is how I introduced my wife to Supercross. We were dating, and we went to the same. We go to church. We went to the same church together, and I was supposed to teach a class that Sunday. Well, my boss, he called me up last minute. He's like, dude, I just snagged 2 tickets to Supercross in Vegas. Final round, he's like, let's go. And so on my way to, I think I was in just past St. George, I called her up and I said, hey, I'm going to Supercross. Can you teach the Sunday lesson for me on Sunday? Which gave her about a 36-hour heads up. And so she's like, I guess, but it's like, what is so important that you would ditch this to go watch Supercross? So that's how I kind of introduced her. And then she watched Chad Reed, and she really liked Chad Reed, and she got to meet him eventually. And we've been to, I don't know, a dozen Supercrosses, and so that's her guy. And she's bummed because she doesn't know who to root for next year because Chad Reed's going to be gone. And then, so the whole coronavirus thing, she follows him on Instagram, and she was yelling and screaming about it because they canceled it, and he's like canceling, he was posting about it.
They better be in Salt Lake is all I know, because we've already got tickets.
That's what I'm hoping. Like, and that's what's crazy. They switched this year that Vegas is usually the last round. Salt Lake City gets that honor this year, which for whatever reason I'm pumped about because it's well. The thing is even the Feld Motorsports and the AMA have had to recognize that the fan base in Utah is like they have never not sold out at usually where they have it Rice Eccles. They've never not sold it out. They've had other venues where they don't. Their biggest thing with putting it in, because it usually ends in end of April, 1st of May, is our weather. And it's it's an open stadium. I remember the first year I took Julie there when she met Chad Reed. We got up there and met him, and she's like, so how's the track? And he's like, it's really muddy. And they were pushing snow off the track. That day it was rainy, it was cold. It was probably 37 degrees that day. No, but none of the riders were happy. They're all from like Florida and Southern California, so they're not used to this cold weather. I mean, I remember wearing our parkas that day because it was a night, it was cold.
We went and bought trash bags.
Yeah. It was funny too, and if my wife was here, she's more of a character than I am, but the guys where we sat, they all had a big tarp over them, and they just cut a hole in the tarp and put it over their head, and so it kind of covered our laps. Well, my wife and I are sitting there while we're cheering. These guys kept standing up and stuff, and she saw that the one guy had like Butterfingers and stuff in his pocket, and so every time they would stand up, she would reach up and take one of the candy bars and eat it. The end of the race, she finally told him, hey, I've been stealing your candy bars. He's like, that's where they've been going.
I owe you like $5.
Yeah, she's like, I need to pay for them. And he was cool about it. But that's the cool thing, too, about motorcycle fans and Supercross fans. Everybody, it's like a big family community. We always say, the second you buy a motorcycle, you just joined a family that no matter where you are or where you go, anybody else with a motorcycle, if you're in need or if you're broke down or if anything, they'll stop and help you. They'll wave at you. Whether you're new, whether you've been riding for your whole life. So that's one thing about motorcycles that really, it just brings the whole family together.
Go to Sand Mountain or a race, and if you break down, man, you got people everywhere pulling parts out of their trailer, pulling bikes apart if it's a spare to get you going.
Yep.
And I've literally borrowed parts off of somebody's bike, raced my race, went and pulled the bars back off and put them on his bike so he could race.
Yep.
And it truly is. And you go to like Monster Energy Cup, that's my thing. I love going to the $1 million race. Oh yeah, because it's not a points thing.
Yeah,
you got 3 races to prove you are the baddest dude on the track that day. But then you you talk about how big of a family it is, but not only that, of how patriotism. There's nobody that kneels during the anthem. If they're not capable, I mean, their hands over their heart, their hats off, and they're teaching their kids that, and that is. There's the beginning of a motocross race it's emotional to me when I go, and my wife's like, are you good? Like 5 minutes ago you were cheering and
now you're crying.
Yeah, and here I am. Now I'm crying a little bit, but
we'll be crying now and at the end of the race.
Yep.
Yeah, then they get the bikes fired up and I'm ready to go.
That's another thing. You walking through the pits and you smell the smell of race fuel. The 2-stroke, you don't get to see it. You don't get to experience as much now, but the 2-strokes, growing up on 2-strokes, the 2-stroke pre-mix smell, the VP race fuel smell now, like that triggers something in every motorcycle racer ever. When I was younger, when I was dating my wife, we used to race arena cross, and we do a lot of the local stuff. And I remember we were in Heber, and I blew a corner, went over a berm, and in an arena cross, there's not a lot of room. And I slammed into the barriers. I was okay, but it blew the front fender of my bike off, which, not a big deal, but if you've ever tried to ride your bike without a front fender, it is trippy. Like, I tried to finish during practice. I tried to finish the practice, and I couldn't because I could see my tire. It was just trippy. So Julie, she'd gathered up all the pieces of my fender, and it was broken into several pieces, and we're like, well, what are we gonna do? And it was like Friday night, nowhere was open, and I don't think anybody had a front fender for my Honda in Heber, so we were trying to figure out what to do. We went to the store, we got some super glue, we tried to glue it back together, we let it set up overnight, get out there on the track first thing in the morning, and the fender just falls off. And I'm like, I can't race like this. I just can't do it. So my wife's like, hold on. She grabbed her drill and she went walking around the pit, and Lindsay Machine happened to be there. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever done business with Lindsay Machine. They're out in Salt Lake. They're a machine shop. They do a lot of like cylinder stuff and head work and whatnot. And my wife didn't know anybody or anything really. She just was like, what we're going to do, she borrowed some zip ties. She drilled holes in my fender and zip tied that thing back together so I could finish the race. And I honestly don't remember that race. I don't remember where I finished, but I do remember everybody on the line was like, dude, that's like the Frankenstein fender. And we still have that fender floating around here in the shop somewhere.
And at that moment, then you proposed. You're like, yeah,
I should have. My proposal story to my wife is the most retarded proposal in the history of proposals.
Let's just stick with that one then.
Yeah. So I re-proposed to her later, and that's the one I told her that she has to tell people about, because I actually got down on one knee. But the first one was ridiculous. She was sick on her couch. It was back in 2008. I just got laid off from my oil field job. I just passed the aptitude test to be accepted to MMI, Motorcycle Mechanic Institute down in Phoenix. And at this point, Julie and I had been dating for about a year, and I had the letter, and then I'd gotten a phone call from the rep, and I walked down there. I'm like, yeah, I might be moving I want to move to Arizona. I want to move to Phoenix. And she's like, oh, okay, that's a big change. I guess it's good. I'm like, well, do you want to go with me? And she's like, well, I don't think we should live together unless we're married. And I said, well, you want to get hitched?
Oh, no.
And she was like, if you're serious, you better get down on one knee. So I got down on one knee, being a smart ass that I am. I'm like, well, you want to get hitched? Again. And that's how I technically proposed to my wife. It was so bad.
You use the old hitch line.
Oh, I should not have. I should have planned to, especially when she was sick, because she was like, she's in the hoodie, got the stuffy nose. Yeah, the hair's not done, and I'm sure she's gonna kill me later when she sees this. But yeah, it was the worst proposal ever. I don't think you could top that one. Granted, she did say yes, so
that's good.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, I was super happy about that, and
Not that bad then.
yeah, as bad as it was, it went pretty well for me anyway. I don't know about her. You'd have to ask her. But we got married in May, and the crazy thing is we were planning the wedding, and we got married on I think May 2nd fell on a Friday that year, and Vegas Supercross was the next day. And so instead of going to Vegas, we went to the Salt Lake Supercross that was the week before. And we were supposed to be planning all this stuff, and we just dropped everything and went to Supercross. And then we had to come back and finish planning the wedding. Because everybody was like, where are you guys going? You're leaving town? We got all this wedding stuff to plan. We're like, we'll be right back.
Yeah.
We got more important stuff to do. So then in October, we packed up everything, moved down to Phoenix, spent 2 years in Phoenix. I went to school. I did work, when we moved back, I worked for the local dealership here for a little while.